Okay, so for my CPS tools and process application paper, I decided instead to go ahead and make a video just about CPS, what I've learned from it, some applications that I've had using a lot of the creativity and innovation tools that we've been working with in class, and from all the readings that we've been doing. And I'm gonna try to summarize that and what I've taken away and what I'm hoping to apply in the future. So to kind of summarize what I've kind of taken away from CPS, what it really means to me, there's kind of three major parts of it. First part is really exploring um, what your challenge or your problem is. Kind of have to first identify it before you decide you need to gather more information about what the challenge or problem is. And this really helps you clarify what the problem is in order to state it in the right way and give you really the best chance of completing or coming up with a solution to the challenge or problem that you are trying to address. And from there, once you've done some exploring, you need to start generating ideas, lots and lots of ideas, coming up with anything and everything that you can focused on solving the problem. This kind of requires you to approach it from a lot of different perspectives, um, coming up with different ideas, because you know because generating more ideas leads to a greater success in solving the problem. But once you've generated all these ideas, you do a lot of refining of the ideas and what you've come up with, really weeding out the ones that are going to be able to help you the most, finding the ones that are by far the more promising ones, and this often requires you to kind of take the best parts of different ideas from a lot of ideas, um, and see what you think might work. And the best way to find out if it's going to work is the third part of CPS, which is going out and trying your solutions, um, figuring out where their strengths are. How do you test them to see if they'll work? And once you've tested them, how are you going to refine them and make them better? Um, how do they solve your problem the best? What criteria do you need um, in order to evaluate whether or not it's solving your problem? Um, and then once you've done some practicing and testing, you kind of figure out what are the challenges and stuff that it's going to face to being implemented, and what do you need to do to get around those challenges. Um, who can help you get around those challenges? What is it going to take to get around those challenges? And very importantly is how do you measure the success of these different challenges? Um, so far, my experiences using CPS have been really, really great. It's been a really organized approach to solving problems for me, as opposed to just kind of going for it, seeing what happens, and just trying it, and then dealing with the consequences later. So there's a lot more of the first two steps where you're really exploring the challenge, figuring out what it is that you're actually up against, and gathering a lot more information, doing a lot more preparation um, when tackling a problem. And that's really been a big difference in just the way that I choose to attack problems using this method now. And also the idea generation. Often I just go with the first one or two ideas that I come up with. Instead, I now try to create many, many, many more ideas and just keep generating them until I decide I almost have too many. And at that point, I can start refining the ideas and picking which ones are the best and which ones sound the best. As opposed to before, I just come up with one or two ideas, go with the best one or two, and see what happens and maybe refine later if it didn't work out. A lot of the generating ideas practices that we've done in class have been really useful to me. Different ways of thinking about problems, different ways of approaching coming up with solutions. A lot of the practice and stuff that we've been practicing, getting in the habit of coming up with a bunch of different ideas has been really, really important for me. The 350 ideas, going through lots of rounds of different ideas for coming up for my big project at the end, going through a lot of converging and diverging, coming up with good ideas and bad ideas and crazy ideas and combining ideas was really important to coming up with a lot of successes in my main project. Getting in that habit of forcing yourself to come up with additional solutions has been really important for me. Kind of pushing my limits has helped me go a lot further in being able to create more ideas and being able to think outside the box in more situations. And also not just taking each idea as its own thing, but a lot of combining the ideas has been a really good practice for me, and refining them as well, because sometimes you'll have almost a good idea and then it just takes a little bit more effort and thought to make it significantly better. I think one of the things that has come through that is in other areas outside of school, particularly in implementing the process and trying to figure out solutions. For instance, when right now Ryan and I are trying to get our tender cure project off the ground, and we're at the point where we have done a lot of planning about all these different strategies, and we have gathered all this information, and we know kind of what the problem is, what our solutions are going to be, how we're going to address them. And at this point, we need to get a prototype out there. We need to start testing these ideas that we have. We need to start figuring out what works, what doesn't work, how do we refine these, how do we get some information, some feedback on all these different ideas that we've been coming up with. And the only way to do that is to go out and implement the ideas, put something out there that people can interact with and use, and we can get feedback on both on provider sides and on patient sides. And that's kind of the thing that we need to push the most right now, and that's something that we've been talking about and focusing on, and is probably our next really big step. And using the CPS tools and stuff, you can see that that's one big component of the CPS process, and coming up with prototyping and developing, and it's also part of design thinking, coming up with a prototype and testing and working with all that as well. But CPS obviously can be used in all areas of business, with whether it's marketing or just coming up with solutions to any sort of problem you may be facing. You definitely have to be creative. You have to generate a lot of ideas. You have to do a lot of research to be focused enough to allow yourself to come up with ideas that seem abstract, and you can refine and narrow down the ones that are going to be the best. And by testing and implementing those ideas, you're going to see how they work, which allows you to move forward. Another area that I found outside of business, where a lot of creative problem solving has come into play for me very recently, was last week when I was volunteering at camp. There was a lot of times where we had to come up with creative ways to entertain or keep the kids really engaged, and a lot of it had to do with individualizing their experiences, because these kids are so different. They all have these really different backgrounds, these different needs, um, and being able to identify who they were as individuals and what they really liked and they enjoyed. You really had to go through and get to know the kids. You had to gather a lot of information about them, see what they like, see what they've done in the past, talk to other counselors and talk to their friends about what they like, what they do, um, and then go through and start coming up with ideas on how you might get them more engaged, how you might get them more excited about the activity that we're doing, how you might maybe change or alter how you frame the activity or that you're doing in order to make it more exciting for them. You start coming up with all these different ideas about how you might do that in order to give them this really individualized, exciting experience. And then you gotta just go try it, because sometimes you're right, you understand them, and it works, and other times it just crashes and burns, and the kid's like, what are you doing? But there were a lot of instances of this with me at camp. There were certain kids, there was a kid named Carlos who was very imaginative, and I played a lot of games with him about traveling to secret islands and fighting all these bad guys and stuff. We had to incorporate those games into the activities that we were doing as well, and they could be different challenges that he was facing, and we create this whole story behind these activities, and it got him really, really engaged and excited about all these activities. There was another kid, Nail, who I was working with, and kind of out of nowhere, he just really decided he wanted to drive a car, and he wouldn't do anything until he drove a car. And we had some downtime one day, and one of his big things was we needed to get him out of his wheelchair. He could walk, but he really tends to stay in his wheelchair. He doesn't like walking around, but his parents really requested to kind of get him walking, get him moving. So I ended up coming up with the solution that we were going to walk around to the different cars and see if they were open, to see if we could drive them, and this really motivated him to get up out of his wheelchair, get moving. And it was a really cool solution that he enjoyed, that was helped achieve a goal that was set by his parents, and worked out for everybody. There was also another situation with a camper named Cole, who had been having accidents in his wheelchair multiple times throughout the week, and it was becoming a big problem, and we had to the issue was he was getting really excited at the events and was getting distracted, and you kind of had to give him extra attention, and the solution that we came up with was constant bathroom checkup. So we were just going to incorporate those into just a conversation that you had with him. When you approached him, he was like, hey, what's up? Because the kid loves going to the bathroom, goes there all the time. It gets a little annoying for some of the counselors, but you kind of made a game out of it. You made it exciting, you made it fun for him to, ask to go to the bathroom when he needed to go, and it ended up leading towards significantly fewer accidents, and he just had a much better time about it. He was very embarrassed about the accidents and stuff that were happening, and we were able to prevent those, and he had a much better experience at camp. But now I'm also hoping to apply these going forward with medical school applications and with my job searching, kind of figuring out what the problem is that I'm facing. How am I going to gather more information about these areas that I'm trying to enter, and refining the challenge that I'm facing in order to come up with lots of solutions, potential solutions, to how I'm going to approach these applications and these job searching, in order to achieve different results, and then just going out there and trying different things, seeing what happens when I try these different things and where it goes from there. But ultimately, the whole CPS process tools, all of this creativity and innovation that we've been practicing and learning has become much more habitual for me, and something that I intend to continue to practice and continue to try going forward, and something that I picked up and intend to use for a really long time.